Pour yourself something warm, sweethearts. The fire's crackling, the stories are flowing, and our mountain man is about to show his softer side. In firelight, even old scars can look beautiful. Chapter 10. Stories and Secrets. Darcy sank into the armchair, cradling her hot chocolate while Maya rummaged through her kitchen cabinets. Rose perched on the window seat, her ever-present phone temporarily forgotten as she watched Callum settle onto the couch.
So,
Maya called over her shoulder.
should we tell Darcy about the great metal sculpture incident?
Callum's eyes lit up in a way that made Darcy's stomach do a little flip.
You mean Edward's masterpiece of mayhem?
Oh God, yes!
Rose clapped her hands.
Darcy, you have to hear this. Callum tells it best.
I don't know.
He demurred, but his lips twitched.
It loses something without the visual of Richard's facial expressions.
Please?
The word slipped out before Darcy could stop it. When he looked at her, surprised, she added,
I mean, for research purposes. Artist retreats gone wrong could be great comic material.
Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Interest? As he leaned forward, elbows on his knees.
Well, if it's for research.
Maya distributed mugs of hot chocolate, each topped with an architecturally improbable tower of marshmallows, then curled up on the floor near the fireplace.
Set the scene, Mountain Man.
It was 2 winters ago.
Callum began, his voice dropping into a natural storyteller's rhythm. Darcy found herself studying the way the firelight played across his features, softening the usual guardedness she'd noticed earlier. His hands moved as he spoke, artist's hands, strong but graceful. She should be sketching this, she thought distantly, but for once she wanted to just watch.
Edward. You'll meet him later. He's the one who makes those massive metal sculptures in the workshop. Had this vision for a piece he called Winter's Heart.
Maya caught Darcy's eye, raising an eyebrow at her friend's obvious fascination. Darcy quickly looked away, but not before Maya's knowing smirk made her cheeks warm.
Pretentious already.
Maya stage whispered, though her attention remained more on Darcy's reaction than the story. Callum didn't seem to notice their silent exchange, too caught up in his tale. A lock of hair had fallen across his forehead, and Darcy's fingers itched with the urge to brush it back. For reference purposes, she told herself. Purely artistic observation.
He'd been working on it for weeks.
Callum continued, and God, his voice had this way of pulling you in, warm and rich like the hot chocolate in her hands.
All very secretive. Wouldn't let anyone in the workshop. Richard was getting nervous because, well, Edward's previous piece had been somewhat...
Maya cleared her throat pointedly, and Darcy realized she'd been staring at the way Callum's throat moved when he spoke. She took a hasty sip of her hot chocolate, nearly choking on a marshmallow. Maya's shoulders shook with silent laughter.
Explosive,
Rose suggested.
Experimental?
Callum corrected diplomatically.
But this one was different. Bigger. More ambitious. Edward said he'd figured out how to capture the exact moment ice crystallizes.
Oh no.
Darcy breathed, already seeing where this was going.
Oh yes.
Callum's eyes met hers, dancing with suppressed laughter.
Picture this. Christmas Eve. Everyone's gathered in the great room for the holiday showcase. Edward wheels in this massive structure, all twisted metal and delicate spires. Beautiful, really. Until...
Darcy found herself leaning forward.
Until he decided to demonstrate the crystallization process, which apparently involved some very questionable electrical components, and what he swore was just a touch of propane.
Maya was already giggling.
Tell her about Richard's boots.
I'm getting there. So the sculpture starts humming, which wasn't part of the plan, then sparking, which was definitely not part of the plan. Richard's reaching for the fire extinguisher when Edward yells, "The metal's supposed to do that," while Richard's trying to put out the fire with his designer snow boots.
Callum's voice shook with laughter.
Custom-made Italian leather, completely ruined. But he kept stamping away, yelling about insurance premiums while Edward's trying to explain the artistic significance of controlled combustion.
Darcy found herself laughing not just at the story, but at the way Callum told it. His hands painting pictures in the air, his voice shifting to capture each character perfectly, his whole face alive with the memory. This wasn't the brooding figure from the dining room or the careful professional from the tree lot. This was someone else entirely, someone real.
To be fair,
Callum added from his spot on the couch.
the sculpture turned out amazing. Once we convinced the fire department it was performance art.
Rose snorted into her hot chocolate.
Performance art. I still have the incident report where Richard wrote, "Artistic vision exceeded safety protocols."
Darcy watched Callum's face soften at the memory, noticed how his fingers absently traced the strap of his camera.
He sounds wonderful.
She said quietly.
He was.
Callum's voice held warmth beneath the grief.
He had this way of seeing the potential in everything, everyone.
Speaking of potential,
Rose's eyes gleamed with familiar mischief.
those photos from this morning are getting quite the response. The one of you two by the lake? Pure magic. Almost like it was meant to be.
Rose.
Callum warned, but there was a flush creeping up his neck.
I'm just saying. Sometimes the best stories write themselves, or draw themselves in this case.
She winked at Darcy.
Your readers are going to love.
Who needs refills?
Maya jumped up.
Darcy, come help me with the snacks. And maybe find those chocolate-covered almonds I hijacked from the gift shop.
They're in your room,
Rose called after them.
behind your art supplies.
Maya dragged Darcy down the hallway to her bedroom, closing the door with exaggerated stealth.
Okay, Spill. What's happening with you and Mountain Man out there? Nothing's happening. It's just marketing. Like we discussed. Honey, I've seen marketing. That thing with his hands on the saw handle? That was chemistry.
Maya flopped onto her bed.
Pure, uncut, Hallmark movie wishes it was this good chemistry.
Darcy sank down beside her, only to leap up with a yelp as something buzzed beneath the covers.
Oh, God.
Maya dove for the blankets, emerging with a device that was indeed significantly larger than Darcy's.
I told you Bob was bigger, though.
She waggled her eyebrows.
Maybe you won't need the comparison for much longer. Maya. What? I'm just saying the way he looks at you. He looks at everyone like that, all intense and genuine and... Actually,
Maya's voice softened.
he doesn't. I've known him since Richard hired him to photograph the retreat 5 years ago. He's always been kind, but distant. Especially since... But today, the way he laughs around you, that's new.
Darcy picked at a loose thread on Maya's quilt.
It doesn't matter. Once he finds out about the comic, about how I turn real people into content, or maybe he'll understand that you see the beauty in real moments. Just like he does with that camera. That's different. Is it?
Maya tucked Bob away in a drawer.
You both capture life as it happens. You just use different tools.
From the living room, they heard Callum's laugh, deep and genuine, at something Rose had said.
Just be careful with him.
Maya said quietly.
He's been through a lot. And if you break his heart, I'll have to kill you. Which would be tragic because I'm actually starting to like having you around. Plus, who else is going to appreciate my inappropriate commentary and dubious life choices?
Darcy threw a pillow at her.
You're terrible. I'm delightful. Now come on, let's get back out there before Rose convinces him to pose for more promotional shots. Though,
She grinned wickedly.
maybe we should let her. For artistic reference. I hate you. You love me. Almost as much as you're starting to love those biceps. I will smother you with your own Christmas tree. Worth it.
They grabbed the almonds and headed back to the living room, where Rose was showing Callum something on her phone that had him looking both embarrassed and pleased.
Everything okay in there?
He asked, those green eyes finding Darcy's.
Perfect.
Maya answered before Darcy could.
Just girl talk. You know, comparing artistic techniques.
Darcy choked on an almond. Some things, she decided, were better left undrawn. And unspoken. Definitely unspoken.